Hi there. This video presentation is in response to Stefan Euler's assertion that the West has misinterpreted the objective of, for example, Hatha Yoga and the yogas generally. Hatha Yoga is one of the 8 limbs of the yoga wheel. I think he's being a bit disingenuous to the West at this point because, in fact, in India, Hatha Yoga has multiple objectives in mind, and I've actually outlined the main ones here, and which roughly correspond to the actual 5 points of the pentagram and the 4 elements, the 5 elements. Hatha Yoga actually means it means the union of sun and moon. Sun is consciousness and moon is the body, which reflects the light of consciousness. And by uniting the sun and moon, by uniting body and mind, you actually create circumstances for making it easier to decrease the identity you have with yourself and your body. And therefore establishing yourself in its purest form, according to the Upanishads. So, I mean, Upanishads, so it has. This is a very important part of Hatha Yoga, is the uniting of mind and body through intention and through pranayama, which is breath control or breath awareness. And this certainly has a transcendental objective in mind. But it's also true that in India, where Hatha Yoga was obviously developed over thousands of years, there are pretty much less transcendental objectives for the type of yoga. For example, yoga can be seen as part of an Ayurvedic system, which is to bring health to the body and to cure chronic and acute illnesses as well. It's part of that is based very much materialistic considerations of body energy, and it's like materialized spirituality. We're talking about enjoying life more by being free of disease and free of physical ailments, and of course, the whole sort of study of chakras, which of course Hatha Yoga stimulates and balances, is very much also to do with the physical body. Okay, it's talking about energy bodies as well, and etheric bodies and different pranas, for example, different types of prana, and balancing those pranas as well. And the different types of prana, you see, that is circulating the body from the etheric level to the physical. But again, you don't even have to assume the existence of a god at all. There is just this impersonal Brahmin energy, life force, which is present in the universe, and you're simply harnessing the forces of the universe to your own advantage and to increase the health of your body. And on the other side, of course, there is the actual use of yoga to developing magical powers and siddhas. And so therefore is very much objective of Tantra, which basically is could be about getting possessions, attracting money and power, and sexual liberation as well, sexual partners of the right kind, through the implementation of the fire breath, for which you have to have the right asana or posture. So again, you can be completely materialistic, completely atheistic. The universe is just pure energy. There is no deity. There is no divine consciousness of any kind. There's no transcendence of any kind either. This is about the here and now. Tantra is not even concerned with mind liberation, but liberation within the material universe. There's no talk of transcending the material universe. Although, of course, I have read a lot of books, Tantra books, which have been theosophized and made transcendent when in fact they were never transcendent in the first place. But of course, granted, there is a Bhakti version of Tantra, which brings me on to the sort of the Bhakti objective of Hatha Yoga, which of course, I mean, each of the asana means seat. So you become the seat for the particular god. So you do a particular asana, and this attunes you to the particular god or goddess, and attracts the qualities of the god or goddess to you, and brings benefits and boons to you as well. If you successfully create the posture and maintain that posture for long periods of time, this is an act of devotion, an act of worship to the particular god and goddess of that asana, and so you know it has a ritual aspect as well. So again, well, that's a bit more transcendental, obviously, but it's still the gods and goddesses of this world who live in this world in particular. And you know, it would still be even a postures or set of postures to the god of this world, to the demiurge himself, you know. And again, it's for your own selfish ends as well, and not necessarily transcendental to this world. So then we come back to my first thing. We talk about you know, uniting body and mind through intention and breath awareness or breath control, and this may have a transcendental objective in mind. The body is, of course, one of many distractions in life, which prevent you from finding the exit out of this world, and so therefore a good posture, a good yoga posture is essential for meditation, for minimizing the distraction caused by the body, and then of course you know you bring the breath into awareness. And so that even the breath itself is no longer a distraction, and then of course from there you can seek minimal distraction with your thoughts and your feelings and all that, until you reach samadhi, which is of course a glimpse of the liberation that you seek ultimately, which is of course transcendence of this material world, transcendence of the realm of the demiurge, to put it in Gnostic terms. And so this will be the most Gnostic, most transcendental objective of Hatha Yoga. And Hatha Yoga, there's no, that's the only reason that you would do Hatha Yoga, is in order to minimize the distraction of your physical senses. You know, there's no concern there for physical health or longevity or attracting money or power, or even devotion to the god of this world. There is only a transcendental objective there. But so yoga has many different objectives, and people do yoga for very many different reasons, not only in the West, but also in India itself. And yoga is a very, it involves or encompasses a very complex tradition or set of traditions, some of which are completely atheistic and humanistic and secularist, and others which are more bhakti or more based on worshipping a personal god, and only really, and of course some yogas obviously have the transcendental element, which Stefan Hoyle wants yoga to have, and thinks that is the pure yoga. Yoga is a means to an end, which is transcendence. But yoga can also be a means, it's an end in itself, in that it produces increased bodily vitality and attracts money and power, as well as being a sign of worship to the gods, and thereby, you know, getting things for yourself from the actual gods themselves through merit, through earning merit. And also, of course, you can also burn up karma using certain yogas, in which case you don't come back as something less than a human being. You have a more fortunate incarnation next time if you get spiritual merit from doing hatha yoga and dedicating it to the gods. So again, the transcend there's well, I suppose there's a grey area there of transcendental. There's a transcendental element to it, but it's certainly not the same transcendental element as Stefan Euler is talking about with regard to Gnosticism. Also this applies to somebody who said, is there a Gnostic Yoga? Well, indeed there would be, because yoga, the 8 limbs of yoga would be pressed into service for the purpose of ultimate transcendence and for achieving soul awareness, which is going to propel you across the abyss, to put it in Kabbalistic terms, and into the supernal triad, and beyond Keter itself, even the ultimate transcendence of the whole of all this. That's one sort of waves one's hand around the room, all this and all the etheric and subtle bodies and everything, which are all more sophisticated, more subtle traps put there by the demiurge, which a lot of the yogas do encompass, by the way. There is a pure yoga, pure transcendental yoga, but there's also a lot of impure yoga, as it might be called, as it were. And a lot of people would argue that is not impure yoga, that is pure yoga as well, because immanence in this world is just as important as transcendence of it, according to some schools of Tantra anyway. And they would be quite sort of horrified by the fact that one would want to exit this world and exit all reincarnation and exit the wheel of suffering. They would be horrified that would want to do this, in fact. They would see no point in doing it. How great is the adventure? And if we are reincarnated next time as whatever, then that is all part of the adventure, the cosmological adventure on which the soul is taking part. Even if we believe in a soul, which some tantric systems seem to suggest there isn't even a soul. That there is a sort of vital prana in everything, but there is no actual soul in terms of some kind of transcendent metaphysical element which is going to pass beyond this world. That is an absurd idea to some tantric schools. So, and I also think in the West, a lot of people are very much aware of the transcendental nature of yoga, and I think even if you read Thelemic Magic, obviously Crowley put in the thing about yoga asana being a way of creating a seat for your own self to encompass the voice of the silence and enable you to silence the body in order for you to listen, to become aware of soul and to become aware of the voice of the silence. And Hatha Yoga is part of that process, as indeed all the yogas are part of the transcendental process. And I have to say that of the yogas, of course, jhana yoga, which is yoga of knowledge, is also has this kind of transcendental nature to it, in the sense that if you study the scriptures, you study the sutras, and you study the Gnostic Gospels for that matter, then this is a form of worship, but it's a form of transcendence as well. And if you keep reading the same scriptures every day, and you get different things out of them, but if you keep reading it every day, keep reminding yourself every day that you are not your body, that you're not part of the demiurge, that you're not part of this physical realm, and you keep reminding yourself, eventually your soul, you become into a permanent state of awareness of soul, and by which you propel yourself again across the abyss and into the ineffable supernal world. but yoga is even more complex than that, really. I mean, there's various stages as well. There are 250 odd stages of Bhakti yoga, for example, of which Hatha yoga would be one of them, and puja would be 14 steps of that process, for example. But there are many other processes involved. And that's about as transcendental as anybody would possibly want to get on this world as well, according to some Hindu schools of thought. So anyway, I just, if you're going to look at yoga, there is a Gnostic yoga, but you have to be very careful what you intend to do with the yogas that you use. And obviously you must keep everything directed towards the objective of transcendence, and reject everything else if that is what you think yoga is all about. And a lot of schools of yoga would argue with you very strenuously on that point, and reject asceticism altogether, and reject transcendence altogether as well. So the argument, I suppose, between exiting this world and staying within the bounds of this world, the argument exists within Hinduism as much as it does within Western mysticism. In case you didn't realize that, but of course, when you think about Western mysticism and Gnosticism, very few people seem to be particularly interested in Gnosticism, I have to say. Particularly evidence on YouTube, where you hardly get anybody particularly interested in any of this, really, because it turns out that people really are far more interested in enhancing their lives in the here and now, rather than following any ascetic path in the hope of transcending this world and going to another place which is better than this world. And I guess when it comes down to it, people are out to get what they can out of a system, rather than sort of forsaking this world and the material world for something outside of this world. So anyway, I don't think that people in the West have misinterpreted yoga or the objectives of yoga in particular, or particularly have rejected them, really. And I don't think yoga has been particularly bastardized, really, in the West. Certainly, I think that as far as method is concerned, there are arguments about what, but and certainly some yogas are very athletic. BKS Iyengar, for example, but he's a master yogi, and he recommended for advanced students anyway a most athletic approach to yoga. He didn't actually recommend an athletic approach to newcomers, by the way. He called for much caution as far as newcomers are concerned, and much softness of body. And it could be that Westerners actually cannot approach yoga from the athletic point of view at all, because it's far too dangerous. And there is a sort of Western yoga for Westerners, in fact, which has been developed over the decades as well, since the 1950s, let's say. So all this is quite interesting when you look at Gnosticism, from a Hindu point of view, and you attempt to unite Gnosticism with something like Hatha yoga, which is physical yoga, as it were. And I think, it's quite interesting and informative to do this and to contemplate doing this, because you begin to realize that opportunities exist, I think, for both worldliness and non-worldliness alike.